I did not plan on making this video. This video found me, okay? Somebody asked me to speak about this. Originally, I was like, I don't really know if I want to touch this subject, but then I saw something this morning that was on my Explorer page, and I felt my heart thumping, and I felt the opinions going. So now I got to talk about it. Now I feel like I have notes. A long list of notes that I would like to read out. Forgive me, I'm gonna probably just be reading straight from this iPad. A lot of times when I do these rants, it's completely unscripted, or I wrote something down and I'm just going based off of memory. But today, it's not one of those videos. I can't do it with this one, so forgive me if I'm not making eye contact. That this is why. So here's the tea. Obsession. I wasn't planning on talking about this movie for my own personal reasons and my own mental health, okay? And I feel as though I wouldn't have anything to add to the discourse that has already been spoken and put on YouTube. That's the main reason I wasn't going to talk about this movie. I like the movie. I like it a lot. There's so many ways that you can look at this movie. That's my general thoughts, okay? I like the movie. It's just I didn't want to personally talk about it. Honestly, internet discourse in general feels like it's gotten to the point where it's just kind of anxiety provoking rather than having meaningful discussions. Even when I see videos about Alex Myers, I just decided I'm going to check out and I'm just going to press not interested, because it makes me angry and honestly concerned to see so many people miss the point of the movie because society already does not take issues like SA, rape culture, and misogyny seriously. Like I said before, I got a comment to actually talk about this. And me mentioning this is by no way me saying that I'm angry at the person who asked me to do it. I really appreciate the suggestion. It's just a sensitive topic and I'm hesitant to talk about it because I don't feel like I have all the words to do this topic as much justice as I could, like reviewing the entire movie and everything. It's just, I love English. I love language. I love learning about things, but I don't think I'm gonna have like always the best word choice to do so. So that's why I would kind of stay away from doing like an entire analysis. Like that's just not me. I'm more of a ranter and, saying what's on my mind, how I feel, right? But again, thank you for the suggestion. It's just for those combined reasons why I would choose originally not to review this or to talk about it until this morning. I saw a video that showed up on my Explorer. I watched it in full, and the take really made me like scratch my head a little bit, right? And then I realized, maybe I do have a little bit to say about this topic, right? So hopefully this video will give you an understanding on how I feel about obsession and why I have a lot of qualms with this video and just this take in general. First of all, don't harass this creator, okay? We're both very small channels, and I'm venturing to guess that we kind of make the same videos, just talking in our room about things that we're interested in and we care about, okay? Don't say anything negative about them. This is not the point of me making this video to stir up some drama. No, this is something I care about. And the last thing I want is somebody using this video to try to stir up something, like I have a personal grudge against this person and I'm trying to get clout or whatever. I hate that word. Y'all know I do. No, this is from the heart. I wrote everything about this. I want this to serve more as like a collective consciousness moment and for a moment for people to think. That's my main goal at the end of this video. I want you to think. To summarize this video, this is about the movie Obsession. If you've never seen the movie Obsession, please go watch it. I won't give a summary here, but it is about the fans of that particular movie. It's about the fan reaction to Universal Studios, the park in Hollywood, I believe, announcing that for their upcoming Halloween Horrors Night, they will be including Nikki from the movie Obsession, right? As a scare actor to act around the park and, scare people and, give a little gag or whatever. To my understanding, based on this video and based on a few little articles that I saw, there was mixed reactions to it. Some people like it and are happy that Nikki's coming to the park and, being such big fans of Obsession. They're happy to see that somebody's gonna try to I guess act like Nikki at the park and, get pictures and reactions, whatever. They're excited for it. And then the other half of people are showing a little bit of a negative reaction to it. Some of them are concerned. And it's this creator's opinion that Nikki should be in the parks and that this whole issue people are taking with Nikki being in the parks as a scare actor for Universal Studios is overblown, maybe a little bit even dramatic, and not based in reality, essentially, I believe is what they're trying to convey. And they believe that Nikki technically is the antagonist of the story, so it makes sense that Universal Studios would want her there, because she's the main focus of the movie and doing all these crazy things, and it's scary, and it fits the whole plot of the movie with her being obsessed and going up to people and scaring them and acting like, I guess, obsessed with them in a way. I don't really know how you would act out Nikki personally, but that's just my opinion. But they believe that because Nikki is the antagonist of the story, even though it's made very clear in that movie that Bear is the actual villain, because she falls into this horror category, that it makes sense for them to want her to be there and to capitalize off of it and entertain people. The creator repeatedly says that they do understand that Bear is the villain, that they got the whole entire plot of the movie. They understand that what Bear did was bad, what he did to Nikki. They say that they understand all of that, okay? I don't want to initially take this video as them saying like they don't understand the plot of Obsession or whatever, or that they don't understand that Nikki got essayed by Bear, right? I don't want to initially take it as they just don't understand any of why people are upset about this decision, right? I don't want to initially take it like that. But where I think the disconnect lies with videos like this and people that talk about Obsession, that say that they understand the plot of Obsession and they get that Bear is a bad guy, I feel like the disconnect comes from the fact that people don't realize that there's broader implications than just the movie itself. Sometimes what we think to ourselves after we watch a movie like Obsession is, okay, cool, we watched the movie, we thought the movie was good, we got some type of message out of the movie, it's pretty clear what the plot was supposed to be and the message of it, and from that point forward we can have our little conversations, our little echo chambers or whatever, and from that point forward it's a done deal. Conversation over, movie good. Typically after consuming media and having our little conversations and everything, then the conversation shuts off, right? We don't think any further about it. We don't think about larger implications of the context of this movie. We don't think about anything further than just a couple cute little discourses. When media is so much bigger than what we like to realize. We don't like to think that these problems that exist in movies exist outside of the media that we consume. We like to think that we don't inspire the media that we watch. We like to think it's just some imaginary story, and it couldn't possibly apply outside, right? We refuse to connect it to our own world, when that's media's very job, is to capture what it is like out here. It's to capture a moment in time in which we are living in the context. Kamala Harris shit. I'm gonna try to give a similar example of what happens when we talk about certain issues in a context and we don't try to apply it outside of the context that we're comfortable thinking about, right? A lot of people can understand that exploitative labor is bad, especially outside the US, right? Where we get images of sweatshops and stories of people who are being heavily mistreated, right? Largely because it's in your face and it's undeniable. So we side-eye when people buy things from Temu and buy drop-shipped goods because it's contributing to the exploitation of others, right? We gawk and we gape and we're like, this is terrible, right? Because it's in your face. But when it comes time to talk about practices such as tipping culture, we fail to see the correlation between that and exploitative labor. Rather than pressure these businesses to give people a fair wage instead of passing the cost on to the customer to keep up with the times of inflation and all of these other expenses that people have to pay for without actually having to pay them. Tipping when you can to make sure that people get paid. Instead of having those discussions, right? The brunt of the anger goes to the barista or the server. It goes to the service worker. Do you know why? Well, it's not my problem they don't have a wage. This is getting ridiculous and entitled. They already get paid. They already get a wage. So why do they need a tip on top of it? Or you get insert meme. Usually I think that these instances are fake, but I won't generalize. I think that they are, but I won't generalize. Usually you get a meme that's inserted about the barista who's like rolling their eyes because you clicked the press not to tip button, right? You pressed to not tip the worker, and then they give you attitude. You know the TikTok stories, the exaggerated instances where the service worker feels so entitled to your money even though they're already getting paid. In this example, you're more hyper focused on the way that the exploitation looks while not actually critiquing the different ways in which a system can make exploitation possible in the first place. Because it's coy, it's not in your face. You can only think about it in a certain context. And it's the same thing here. Your annoyances with these fans calling out the tone deafness of having Nikki at Halloween Horror Nights is not engaging with the actual issue at hand. You're stuck on the semantics of it. Yes, SA happened in the movie. Yes, SA is bad. Yes, the exploitation of people is bad. But you're not linking that same issue with what you learned in the movie with how it operates outside of it. You don't see it as a possible avenue to perpetuate culture. You don't see it as something that could possibly be harmful. You don't see it as a contributing factor in undermining the overall messaging of the movie, and that it can be taken as problematic, because you don't see SA and rape culture outside of a certain context, outside of your preconceived notions of what you think it is, right? You sometimes think that it's the boogeyman, you know, it's Ghostface, it's somebody coming out the corner to harm an unsuspecting victim, you know, it's vile, it's violent. That's typically the image we get when we talk about these kinds of things, right? But what we fail to realize is a lot of these issues are perpetuated by things that we have normalized, things that we could talk about and it would be problematic, right? We also don't view it in a systematic context, how certain things that we can put up in media can actually perpetuate or exasperate these issues. And sometimes we aren't even mad at the rule itself. We're just mad at how the rule operates, right? Let's go back to the example about exploitative labor. Because people were very comfortable with just having servers be tipped regularly as their wage, right? That was normal. But suddenly it's all of a sudden out of control and out of hand when it becomes the drive-through worker and it becomes service industry workers, right? All of a sudden tipping culture is out of control. There's no way, it's terrible. But we were comfortable with servers not having a fair wage. And the same thing applies here. A lot of you guys claim to be advocates for SA victims, and a lot of you guys claim that you care about these issues and consent and all these other things. But when it's time to talk about it socially or systematically, suddenly no one wants to come to the forefront. Suddenly nobody wants to engage with any of this discourse, and we're doing too much. For example, everyone wants to talk about the victim should be believed, but the second that person doesn't have a certain image or look like the boogeyman like how they originally perceived, suddenly you don't hate the rule anymore. Suddenly you just kind of hate how it operates, because if it's somebody that looks like the boogeyman doing it, it's all fine and dandy. Throw his ass in jail. But the second it looks like somebody like Bear, the second that the issue is systematic and exploiting a narrative that was supposed to resonate with a bunch of women and give a voice to them, suddenly it doesn't matter anymore. Suddenly it's okay when the boogeyman is the corporation. Suddenly it's okay when somebody looks like Bear. I mean, yeah, the story's not real, sure, but SA is real. Yeah, Nikki isn't real, but the women who have experienced unwanted advances from somebody are real. Yeah, Bear's not real, but the people who ignore people's well-being for their own benefit are real. Tell me something, Pierre. When you were making this take, did you not think that people would be more inclined to actually harass the character actors because they're portraying Nikki? What would her lines be? What does it say about a company's willingness to take advantage of topics, systematic and social issues, in the name of a quick buck? Squid Games, for example. I like how you say in the video that media literacy is dead, which is already kind of a catch-all statement for a lot of people right now when they want to catch somebody or have a gotcha moment. But a lot of people say this and don't actually know what it means to be media literate. Media literacy isn't just about being able to read a passage or watch something, recite it, and understand its messaging. It also requires you to take that understanding and apply it outside of the media itself. It requires you to draw conclusions based on what you've learned to better understand the world around you. Media doesn't exist in a vacuum. Obsession does not exist in a vacuum. I also like how you use Five Nights at Freddy's as being an example of a dark topic about killing children. People still like the franchise, buy up the merchandise, and create pop-up events. Yet, they understand it's a fictional story. But as somebody who also loves FNAF and can handle the subject matter being dark yet fictional, I feel like this comparison is not in good faith. For one, FNAF was created based off a previous game that Scott had made that caught flack for being creepy, and he decided that he'd like to lean into the horror element. While FNAF does convey some interesting themes, the overall plot of the game is to survive the night despite the odds. The themes are largely up to interpretation. Obsession, on the other hand, is a fictional story but was created with the intention of reflecting a larger societal issue regarding male entitlement, misogyny, and rape culture. Do I think it's reductive to call everyone who wants Nikki as a character actor in Universal Studios bear sympathizers and potential rapists? Yeah, there's always going to be somebody like that. But I'm willing to bet that the majority of the people who are against Nikki being in the park are saying so out of concern. They're concerned about the ethics of this. And it doesn't surprise me, not even a little bit, that some of them think that the people who are fighting so hard for this decision, the people who are calling them dumb over being concerned about these ethics and saying that this movie is not real and it's just a movie and they're only focused on the negative, it's not surprising to me that some of them would view you as somebody unsafe. Or at the very least, you're not somebody who's even willing to take into consideration the ethics around this decision and undermine it for the sake of dopamine and for the sake of being controversial. One last big note from me. One of the things I find so interesting about the reactions to the Obsession movie is the reactions from certain people. Not the ones who are outwardly saying that they stand with Bear. They've made their stance loud and wrong. That's not who I'm concerned about. It's the people who are neutral about their reactions to somebody like Bear that I find so fascinating. Alex Myers, for example. They'll always say something like this: yeah, I liked the movie, and I get why what he did was bad, but you know, Bear is an awkward guy, and he did just have a crush on a girl. And he didn't know what the One Wish Willow would do. He didn't even know any of this could possibly happen. I don't think he's evil. I kind of expected somebody worse. I don't know why everybody made such a big deal about it in the movie. Obviously, a take like this would get backlash because it alludes to the fact that you didn't understand what the movie was trying to convey in the first place. Because people would call them unsafe to be around or accuse them of sympathizing for a rapist or a predator. And you know, it's obvious, right? Nobody wants to associate themselves with acts of violence such as that, let alone defend somebody else who's done that. Right? Who wouldn't defend themselves from being associated with such harmful behavior? So they'll do one of two things. They'll try to diminish Bear's responsibility in what happened to Nikki, or they'll call people dramatic for a simple disagreement over a movie. And my theory is it's because it's easier to do. The reason they do this is because movies like Obsession force them to sit with an uncomfortable realization about rape culture, that they could possibly see themselves in somebody like Bear, that they could have perpetuated rape culture without even knowing it. It forces them to sit with the realization that SA doesn't have just one face like they see on the news. It forces them to sit with the uncomfortable questions. Do I know somebody like Bear? Would I be complicit with his behavior? Would I say anything to him in the first place? Are there ways in which I've interacted with women or with people that are comparable to people like Bear? It forces you to sit with the reality that those innocuous behaviors displayed in the Obsession movie and that have been normalized by society could potentially lead to the harm of people and potentially those around you. It forces you to think, could that have been me? Could I have been complicit in the harm of somebody else? And that realization is the real horror. It's up to all of us to question a lot of these social norms and belief we have about dating, sex, informed consent, and pop culture that have been heavily normalized. Until we start to wrestle with those uncomfortable feelings and how to make sure that we aren't unknowingly participating in the exploitation of people, we aren't going to get anywhere. This also includes systematic exploitation, right? Because we know that people aren't the only ones who perpetuate this type of stuff, right? We know it's also that businesses profit off of it. I don't think it's inherently wrong to want to see Nikki at Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. I don't think that's their issue. The issue is when you're unwilling and defensive when somebody brings up discourse about the ethics of this decision. It's one thing to not agree and say, you know what? I see your point. However, I would still like to see Nikki at Halloween Horror Nights because I'm a big fan of the movie Obsession. That's one thing to say that, right? It's a completely other to just disengage with people who are trying to bring up these points and just cast it off as people being dumb, as people just getting on their high horse and their moral high ground for no reason. So instead of calling Obsession fans miserable, why not question why Universal is so comfortable having a young scare actress portray Nikki in the name of capitalism, cheap gags, so much so that it undermines the whole point of the movie in the first place? Who is really insufferable here? The people who are concerned about the ethics of this, or the people who aren't willing to think further than what makes them comfortable and gets them that dopamine rush? It's so easy just to say that people are miserable and insufferable and you can't stand them than it is to take a second to be serious and to get to the bottom of why people were upset with this decision. It's so easy to cast off people as being dramatic fans with moral superiority complexes than it is to see people who have watched a movie that finally gave a voice to women who feel unsafe in current dating circumstances, as well as situations in and outside of the US. To people who have been made to feel like they are crazy for their own personal accounts and stories. Because we all know a Sheldon. We all know a Hal. We all know a Bear. It is so easy to call everybody who has this opinion chronically online and annoying for no reason than it is to learn about culture and how it's perpetuated not only by us down here, but also by the people up top in the name of keeping us complicit and non-threatening. I know I don't have all the answers to fix these issues, but I know that the first step is to admit that we didn't just fall out of a coconut tree and to start thinking. Get uncomfortable. Let me know your thoughts on this video. I will be deleting any comment that even alludes to not taking this seriously. This is important to me and it should be important to everybody here. So I just won't allow that. Tell somebody you love them today because tomorrow is not promised to us. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.